Okay, so today we're diving into something, well, it's pretty close to home for, I'd say, most people, right?
Right.
How we fund our
Yeah.
schools,
Yeah.
public schools, and, we got this proposal from a mayor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, wants to make like a big change, a big shift in how we're doing things in Ohio,
Mm-hmm.
getting away from property taxes to fund schools.
It's a big one for sure.
Yeah, it is. It's bold. I mean, is it even like possible? I don't know. That's what we're here to find out.
Well, the thing is right now, Ohio, it really leans on those property taxes.
Yeah.
And that creates this, I think of it like a seesaw, right?
Okay.
The wealthier districts, the ones that have, higher property values,
Mm-hmm.
they end up with way more resources for their schools.
Right.
And the areas that maybe aren't as well off, even if they're paying higher tax rates,
Yeah.
their schools, they just can't keep up.
It's trouble.
And this mayor, that's exactly what he's pointing out,
Yeah.
It's just not fair. He says it's time we got to reboot the system.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't just complain about it, though, does he?
No, well.
He actually has this whole like 5-year plan.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to completely phase out property taxes for schools
Yeah, get rid of them.
over 5 years. Yeah.
And replace them with all these other ways to get the money.
It sounds kind of radical when you put it like that.
It's definitely ambitious.
Is it even like doable?
Well, that's the $1,000,000 question, isn't it? I mean, so what he's talking about is like mixing it up,
Right.
income taxes, sales taxes, and then you've got lottery funds.
No.
Even like taxes on energy production.
Oh, wow.
And, those, what some people call sin items,
Oh, right.
like tobacco.
Things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the question is, can those things actually bring in enough money?
Right. To replace what we're getting from property taxes.
That's the complex part right there.
So, okay, so instead of just using how much your house is worth to decide how much money schools get,
Mm-hmm.
the mayor wants to get the money from like all sorts of different places.
Mm-hmm. A broader base, yeah.
Yeah, broader. That's what I mean. That sounds kind of fair
Right.
when you put it like that.
Potentially.
But, I guess it depends on how these different taxes actually like work.
Yeah, and who they affect.
Right. Right. Like what's the impact?
Exactly.
So, okay, like take income tax.
Okay, yeah.
How does that like actually work in this scenario?
So usually income tax, it's what we call progressive,
Right.
meaning if you earn more, you're paying a higher percentage of your income,
Gotcha.
which on the surface seems pretty fair.
Yeah.
But it can also be a little, unpredictable.
Unpredictable how?
Well, it goes up and down with the economy.
Right.
So if the economy takes a dip, you might not be getting as much money as you need.
Right.
And then you've got sales tax.
Okay. Yeah.
That one is what we call regressive.
Oh, okay.
That means it actually ends up hitting people with lower incomes harder.
Why is that?
Well, they're spending a bigger chunk of what they earn on things they have to buy, everyday stuff.
Right.
So a sales tax increase, that could really hurt.
Yeah, I see.
And then you've got the sin taxes.
Right.
Which, I mean, they're meant to, discourage people from doing things that are maybe not so healthy.
Yeah.
But, it does raise some ethical questions, doesn't it?
It does.
Like, is it really fair to rely on, people who smoke or drink to pay for our schools?
Right. That's a tough one.
Yeah, there are a lot of different angles to consider.
Okay, so it's a lot to balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to get the money somehow, but you also got to think about, like you said, the ethics of it.
Exactly.
And, how it affects different people in different ways,
Mm-hmm.
right? The mayor, though, he says his plan could really change things for the better.
Yeah.
Not just for, making things fairer in terms of how much money each school gets,
Mm-hmm.
but for like regular families who are struggling with these property taxes.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the good things he's saying could come out of this?
Well, I think the biggest plus, at least for people who own homes
Yeah.
and especially retirees on fixed incomes,
Yeah.
is that, they're going to see their property taxes go down
Right.
and eventually disappear completely.
Schools, yeah.
For schools, exactly.
It's a lot of money.
It is. Imagine that burden gone,
Well, yeah.
The mayor is also really emphasizing this idea of a system that's more equal,
Mm-hmm.
where, it doesn't matter how much your house is worth in your district.
Right.
The funding is based on what each district actually needs.
Okay, so every student, no matter where they live,
Mm-hmm.
they get the same shock.
That's the goal, at least.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be the goal. That sounds pretty good to me.
It's a powerful idea.
But how do we make sure it actually happens?
Right.
He talks about this inflation-responsive funding formula.
Mm-hmm.
I got to be honest, that sounds a little complicated.
Yeah, well, it's a pretty important detail, actually.
Okay.
Basically, what it means is that however the funding works,
Mm.
it adjusts every year.
Adjust to what?
Inflation.
Oh, okay.
So no matter how much prices go up,
Mm-hmm.
schools don't end up with less money to spend.
Right, because things get more expensive.
Exactly. It happens all the time with the old ways of funding schools.
Yeah, that makes sense. You can't just promise more money and then not, you know.
And not account for the rising costs.
Yeah, exactly.
It's got to be built in. Of course, how this formula actually works, the details,
Yeah.
that's going to be a whole other discussion.
Yeah, I bet. Okay, so we've got this big idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've got these, potential good things that could come out of it.
Yeah.
But are there any, downsides?
Mm-hmm.
Anything he might not be thinking about?
Well, yeah, of course. Anytime you try to make big changes, there are going to be hurdles.
Like what?
Well, for one thing, to get this kind of tax reform passed, that's a huge political battle.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have people who like the current system, right? They're going to fight to keep it.
Right.
And then you're going to have people who just don't like the mix of taxes he's proposing.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be pushback.
Even if it did pass, wouldn't some people say that it's just shifting the burden?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of homeowners paying, now it's people with lower incomes who might end up paying more through sales tax or whatever.
That's a valid concern, definitely. And the mayor would need to, figure out a way to address that.
So are there ways to protect people who might get hurt by these changes?
That's what he'd have to show, yeah.
Okay.
Maybe tax credits or exemptions, something like that.
It also makes you think about, local control.
Mm-hmm.
Some people might worry that this gives the state too much power, right?
Yeah, that's always a big question with education funding.
Shouldn't communities have a say in how their schools are funded?
Right, right.
So how do you balance that, that need for fairness
Yeah.
with letting local communities make their own decisions?
It's a tricky one.
Yeah.
You'd need to find some middle ground. Maybe the state provides a base level of funding,
right.
But then allows for some flexibility,
Mm-hmm.
Let local areas decide if they want to add extra through levies or something.
Okay, so we've covered a lot here.
Yeah, we have.
This is a big, bold idea with, some potential benefits, but also a lot of complicated stuff to figure out.
A lot of moving parts, for
Right.
sure.
Yeah. This feels bigger than just Ohio, doesn't it?
It does.
Other states got to be dealing with this too?
Absolutely. Yeah. All across the country, states are wrestling with these same questions.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Trying to find ways to fund schools fairly and in a way that, can actually last.
Yeah.
A lot of them are looking at moving away from this heavy reliance on property taxes, just like the mayor.
So Ohio's not alone in this. Are there any states that have actually, done something similar?
Yeah, there are definitely some states that have been experimenting with different models.
Have any of them, actually worked?
Well, there have been some successes, and to be honest, there have been some that haven't gone so well.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot we can learn from, both the good and the bad examples.
Mm-hmm.
Some states have figured out ways to make things more equal,
Yeah.
and still give communities some say in things.
But it sounds like it's not easy.
It's a long process, yeah.
Okay, so no easy answers here.
No, not really.
But it seems like this mayor, at least he's, starting the conversation.
Yeah, it's sparking debate,
Yeah.
which is important.
It is.
I gotta talk about this stuff.
We got to talk about how we're going to fund schools in a way that's fair for everyone.
Exactly.
And that actually works, long term.
For all students.
Yeah, all students, that's it. That's the key. So this leaves us with a lot to think about.
Mm-hmm.
If you could design the perfect system,
Yeah.
how would you do it?
That's a good question.
How would you make sure there's enough money
Right.
and that it's spread out fairly and that communities still have a voice?
It's a tough challenge.
It is, but it's worth thinking about,
For sure.
It's a challenge worth taking on. Well, thanks for diving deep with us today.
It's been a pleasure.
Really appreciate it.
Anytime.
We'll see you next time.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye.